The first thing you need to understand about Kira Voss is that she never wanted to be special. She just wanted to survive long enough to send money back to her family on the colony world of Dust 7. The second thing you need to understand is that when someone pushes Kira Voss, she does not forget, she does not forgive. She calculates, and then she acts. The Galactic Military Academy on station, Prometheus, was not designed for people like her. It was built for the sons and daughters of admirals, for the privileged offspring of corporate dynasties, for the golden children who had never known what it felt like to ration oxygen or watch their siblings go hungry. Kira knew this the moment she stepped off the transport shuttle 3 months ago, clutching her acceptance letter like it was made of glass. She had earned her place through test scores alone, perfect marks in tactical analysis, record-breaking times in the combat simulations, a recommendation from a retired general who had seen her fight in an underground ring on Dust 7 and recognized something in her eyes, something hungry, something patient. But none of that mattered to people like Dorian Kresh. Dorian Kresh was the kind of person who had never been told no in his entire pampered existence. His father owned half the mining operations in the Outer Reach. His mother sat on the Galactic Council. His family name was literally carved into the walls of 3 different buildings on this station. He walked through the halls of Prometheus like he owned them, because in many ways he did. And from the very first day, he had decided that Kira Voss was his personal entertainment. It started small. Comments about her accent, jokes about colony rats and gutter trash, her locker being mysteriously emptied, her assignments going missing from the system, little cuts, designed to bleed her out slowly, to make her quit so he would not have to share oxygen with someone so far beneath him. Kira absorbed it all. She smiled politely. She kept her head down. She studied harder. She trained longer. And every single night, she added another line to the list she kept hidden under her mattress. A list of every insult, every sabotage, every humiliation. Some people might call that obsessive. Kira called it preparation. Combat training day arrived on a Tuesday, which Kira always thought was a strange day for violence. The training hall was enormous, a cavernous space filled with holographic targets, weapons racks, and the infamous combat mats that had broken more cadets than any exam ever could. The mats were made of smart material that recorded every impact, every technique, every failure. They remembered everything, just like Kira. Instructor Zahn stood at the center of the hall, her cybernetic eye gleaming as she surveyed the assembled cadets. She was a veteran of the Kepler campaign, missing an arm and half her face, but still more dangerous than anyone else in the room. The cadets respected her. The smart ones feared her. "Today we assess hand-to-hand combat proficiency," Zahn announced, her voice cutting through the nervous chatter. "Paired exercises. Full contact. The mats will score your performance. Any cadet who cannot demonstrate basic competency will be assigned remedial training for the remainder of the semester." A groan rippled through the crowd. Remedial training was brutal, for extra hours a day of getting beaten senseless by combat drones. Kira did not groan. She was too busy watching Dorian Kresh whisper something to his pack of followers, all of them glancing in her direction and laughing. She noted the way his hand moved, mimicking a shoving motion. She noted the way his friends nodded eagerly. "Interesting. Pair assignments are randomized by the system," Zahn continued. "When your name is called, report to your designated mat. Begin on my signal. And when I say end, anyone who continues after the whistle will spend the night in the brig. Are we clear?" "Yes, instructor." The cadets responded in unison. The names began to flash on the overhead display. Kira waited, her heart steady, her breathing controlled. She had learned long ago how to manage her body's responses to stress. Panic was a luxury she could not afford. Mat 7. Kira Voss. Dorian Kresh. For just a moment, the universe seemed to pause. Kira felt the eyes of the entire hall turn toward her. She heard the snickers from Dorian's friends. She saw the smirk spreading across his perfect, privileged face. Random assignment. Sure, because the system that Dorian's family had donated millions to upgrade would never be susceptible to a little creative manipulation. Kira walked to mat 7 without expression. Her boots made no sound on the floor. She had learned to move quietly in the mines of Dust 7, where noise attracted things you did not want to meet. Dorian was already waiting, bouncing on his heels like this was a game. He was bigger than her by at least 50 pounds, taller by nearly a head. He had been trained by private instructors since childhood. He had every advantage that money and genetics could provide. He thought this was going to be easy. Try not to cry too loud. Colony rat, he murmured as she stepped onto the mat. I would hate for everyone to see what happens when trash tries to play with its betters. Kira said nothing. She simply settled into her stance, weight balanced, hands loose at her sides. She let him see exactly what he expected to see. A scared girl from nowhere, about to be taught her place. Zahn's whistle pierced the air. Dorian moved fast. She would give him that. He came in with a straight punch aimed at her face, textbook technique, plenty of power behind it. It was a kind of blow that worked great against training dummies and sparring partners who were paid to let him win. Kira was neither of those things. She slipped the punch by a fraction of an inch, letting his fist whistle past her ear. She did not counter. Not yet. She wanted to see what he had. He had aggression. He had speed. He threw combinations that would have overwhelmed most opponents, driving forward with the confidence of someone who had never truly been hit. Kira retreated, circling, letting him chase her around the mat while she cataloged his patterns. Left jab, right cross, left hook, always in that order. He dropped his shoulder before the hook. He shifted his weight too far forward on the cross. He was fast, but he was predictable, and he was getting frustrated. Fight back, he snarled, swinging wild. What is wrong with you? Are all colony rats as pathetic? Kira continued to move, her expression blank. She could hear the murmurs from the watching cadets. Some were laughing. Some were uncomfortable. A few, she noticed, were watching with narrowed eyes, recognizing what she was doing even if Dorian could not. She was learning him. 3 minutes into the bout, Dorian's combinations became sloppier. He was breathing hard. Sweat dripped down his face. He had expected to end this quickly, to humiliate her and move on. Instead, he was chasing a ghost around the mat while the whole academy watched. Stand still and fight, he demanded. Kira smiled. It was not a nice smile. Make me. Something snapped behind his eyes. She saw it happen, the moment when frustration became rage, when the civilized veneer cracked and revealed the ugly thing underneath. His face twisted into a snarl. He rushed her, but he did not throw a punch. He did not attempt to grapple. He simply lowered his shoulder and shoved her, both hands slamming into her chest with all his weight behind them. Kira flew backward. The impact drove the air from her lungs. She hit the mat hard enough to make her vision flash white, sliding nearly to the edge before she managed to stop herself. For a moment, she just lay there, staring at the ceiling, letting the shock of it roll through her body. Not because she was hurt. She had taken worse falls in the mines. But because she wanted to remember this feeling. She wanted to remember it exactly. The training hall had gone silent. Pushing was not illegal in combat training, but it was considered poor form, a move used by people who could not actually fight. The mat sensors would record it as low technique, high aggression. Dorian would lose points for it. But more importantly, he had just shown everyone exactly what he was. Zahn's voice cut through the silence. Cadet Kresh, control yourself. Dorian ignored her. He walked to where Kira lay, standing over her with his fists clenched. Get up, colony rat. I am not done with you. Kira looked up at him. She saw the rage in his eyes, the desperate need to dominate, to prove that he was better than her in the only way that mattered to him. She saw 17 years of privilege and cruelty, wrapped in expensive training and genetic optimization. She saw exactly what she had been waiting for. Okay, she said quietly. Let us see what you have got. She rose to her feet in one fluid motion, and something in her posture had changed. The fear was gone. The hesitation was gone. What remained was something older, something forged in the darkness of Dust 7 where the only law was strength. Dorian did not notice. He was too busy celebrating his perceived victory, too busy playing to his friends in the crowd. He threw another combination, the same pattern as before. Left jab, right cross, left hook. Kira did not retreat this time. She parried the jab, redirected the cross, and when the hook came, she was already inside his guard. Her elbow drove into his solar plexus with surgical precision. She felt his diaphragm spasm, felt the air rush out his lungs. His eyes went wide with shock. Before he could recover, she grabbed his arm and twisted, using his own momentum against him. He was bigger, stronger, but strength meant nothing when you could not breathe and your joints were being bent in directions they were not designed to go. She swept his legs, and he went down hard, but she was not finished. Kira dropped with him, transitioning into a mount position, her knees pinning his arms, her weight centered on his chest. He struggled beneath her, bucking and twisting, but she had grown up wrestling with her brothers in the dirt. She had learned to hold on no matter what. She looked down at him, and she let him see her smile. "You know what the difference is between us, Dorian?" Her voice was calm, almost conversational. "You have spent your whole life learning how to fight, but I have spent mine learning how to survive. And those are not the same thing." She could end it here. A simple choke, a joint lock, wait from the tap out. That was what the rules expected. That was what a good cadet would do. But Kira had never claimed to be good. She remembered every insult, every sabotage. Every night she had spent rewriting assignments that mysteriously vanished from the system. She remembered the look on his face when he pushed her, that expression of pure contempt for someone he considered beneath him. She rose off him slightly, shifting her weight. He thought she was letting him up. He actually smiled, thinking he had won somehow, that she was backing down. Then she grabbed his collar, planted her feet, and with every ounce of strength in her compact frame, she lifted him off the mat and slammed him back down. The sound was tremendous. The smart material of the mat cratered beneath him, sensors screaming as they recorded an impact far beyond normal parameters. Dorian's body actually bounced, his eyes rolling back, his mouth open in a silent scream. But the mat did not hold. The material, stressed beyond its limits, simply gave way. Dorian crashed through it, through the padding beneath, through the support structure below that, and vanished into maintenance crawl space underneath the training hall floor. The hole was approximately 6 feet wide. For a long moment, no one moved. No one spoke. The entire training hall stood frozen, staring at the gap in the floor where the Academy's most privileged cadet had just been introduced to gravity. Then, from somewhere in the darkness below, came a weak and trembling voice. What just happened? Kira stood at the edge of the hole, looking down at him. She was not even breathing hard. "That," she said pleasantly, "is what happens when trash takes out the garbage." The silence stretched. And then, from somewhere in the crowd, someone started to laugh. It spread like wildfire, cadet after cadet losing their composure, the sound echoing off the walls of the training hall like music. Instructor Zahn stepped forward, her cybernetic eye flickering as she surveyed the damage. Her expression was unreadable, but Kira could have sworn she saw the corner of her mouth twitch. "Cadet Voss." "Yes, instructor?" "Report to my office after class." "Yes, instructor." Zahn looked at the hole in the floor, then back at Kira, then at the hole again. "And bring documentation on the tensile strength of our training mats. It seems we need to order new ones." She turned and walked away, already calling for medical to extract Dorian from the crawl space. Behind her, the laughter continued, and Kira allowed herself one small moment of satisfaction. But she knew this was not over. Dorian Kresh had money, power, and a family that did not accept defeat. He would come back at her with everything he had. She was counting on it, because Kira Voss did not forget. She did not forgive, and she was just getting started. The footage spread through the Academy network like a virus. Within an hour, every cadet on Station Prometheus had seen Kira Voss put Dorian Kresh through the floor. Within 3 hours, it had reached the civilian sections of the station. By nightfall, copies were bouncing across the galactic communication network, tagged with titles like Colony Girl, Destroys Trust Fund Baby, and When Karma Comes Knocking. Kira watched none of it. She sat in Instructor Zahn's office, her hands folded in her lap, waiting for the verdict that would determine whether she had a future or not. The office was sparse. A desk, 2 chairs, a wall display showing Zahn's service record, which was considerably longer than Kira's entire life. The instructor sat across from her, that cybernetic eye whirring softly as it analyzed Kira's vital signs. Do you know why I called you here, cadet? Because I broke your training mat. Zahn's lips twitched. Mats can be replaced. I called you here because in 23 years of service to this academy, I have never seen a cadet sandbag that effectively. Kira blinked. That was not what she had expected. You saw that? I see everything, Cadet Voss. That is rather the point of having a camera installed in my skull. Zahn leaned forward, her remaining eye fixing Kira with unsettling intensity. You could have ended that fight in 30 seconds. You have the skills. I have seen your simulation scores. Instead, you spent 3 minutes letting that boy exhaust himself while you mapped every weakness in his technique. Then you waited for him to make a mistake that justified your response. That is not the behavior of a hothead. That is the behavior of a predator. Kira said nothing. There was nothing to say. Zahn studied her for a long moment. The Kresh family will demand consequences. They have already contacted the commandant. They want you expelled. I understand. Do you? Zahn stood, walking to her window. The viewport looked out over the academy grounds, where cadets moved between buildings like ants in a colony. Dorian Kresh has a broken collarbone, 3 fractured ribs, and a concussion. He will be in the medical ward for a week. His family is talking about pressing charges. Kira felt something cold settle in her stomach. She had known there would be consequences. She had calculated them. But hearing it spoken aloud made it real in a way it had not been before. However, Zahn continued, turning back to face her. The training mat recorded everything. Every push. Every illegal strike he attempted before you responded. Every rule he broke while you stayed within parameters. Technically speaking, your actions were defensive. Excessive, but defensive. Technically speaking, Kira repeated, the commandant has reviewed the footage. He is not going to expel you. The relief that flooded through Kira was so intense she nearly swayed. She locked her knees, keeping herself upright through sheer will. Thank you, instructor. Do not thank me yet. Zahn's voice hardened. You will serve 2 weeks of detention for destruction of Academy property. You will write a formal apology to Cadet Kresh for any injuries sustained during training. And you will understand very clearly that I am watching you now, Cadet Voss. Whatever game you are playing, I will not allow it to interfere with the functioning of this academy. Kira met her gaze steadily. I am not playing games, instructor. I am just trying to graduate. Zahn held the stare for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, she smiled. It was small and cold, but it was there. Then graduate. But do it without putting any more of my cadets through the floor. Kira left the office with her future intact, but her problems multiplied. She had known that beating Dorian would bring attention. She had not anticipated becoming famous overnight. Cadets she had never spoken to stopped her in the hallways. Some wanted to congratulate her. Some wanted to challenge her. Most had wanted to stare to see the colony rat who had humiliated a Kresh. She smiled politely at all of them and said nothing of substance. Her roommate, a quiet engineering student named Bex Talon, looked at her differently too. When Kira returned to their shared quarters at night, Bex was sitting on her bed, watching one of the many copies of the footage circulating through the network. You know he isn't come after you, Bex said without looking up. Kira began unpacking her training gear. Probably. Not probably. Definitely. His older brother graduated 3 years ago. Works in fleet intelligence now. Dorian has been bragging for weeks about how he can make anyone disappear if they annoy him too much. Kira paused. That was new information. Useful information. Thank you for telling me. Bex finally looked at her, those pale eyes unreadable. I am not telling you so you can make a plan. I am telling you so you understand how much danger you are in. The Kresh family does not forgive. They do not forget. Kira almost laughed. She and the Kresh family had that in common. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of detention and whispers. Kira scrubbed training mats. She cleaned weapons racks. She wrote her formal apology, every word precise and meaningless. And through it all, she waited for the other shoe to drop. It dropped on a Wednesday. She was walking back to her quarters after evening mess when they grabbed her. 3 of them, moving out of the shadows with practiced efficiency. They had her arms pinned before she could react, a bag over her head before she could scream. Professionals, not cadets. They dragged her through corridors she could not see, threw her into a room that smelled like recycled air and old metal. When the bag came off, she was sitting in a chair, her wrists bound to the armrests, facing a man she had never seen before. He was older than the cadets, maybe 30, with Dorian's cheekbones and Dorian's cold eyes. He wore a Fleet Intelligence uniform with lieutenant's bars on the collar. His smile was worse than anything Dorian had ever managed. "Kira Voss," he said pleasantly, "I am Soren Kresh. I believe you put my little brother through a floor." Kira's heart was pounding, but she kept her voice steady. "He pushed me first." "Oh, I know. I have seen the footage. Quite impressive, actually." Soren leaned back in his chair, crossing his legs casually. "You have good instincts. Good technique. Wasted on someone from Dust 7, but good nonetheless. If you are going to kill me," Kira said, "get on with it. I have homework." Soren laughed. It was not a nice sound. "Kill you? My dear Miss Voss, killing you would be far too simple, and far too suspicious. No, I have something much more elegant in mind." He gestured, and one of his people handed him a data pad. He studied it for a moment, then turned it so Kira could see the screen. It showed her family. Her mother, working in the processing plant on Dust 7. Her father, coughing in the medical ward, his lungs ruined by years of dust exposure. Her younger siblings, walking to the community school with patches on their clothes and hope in their eyes. Lovely family, Soren observed. Very photogenic. It would be a shame if something happened to them. The cold in Kira's stomach turned to ice. She pulled against her restraints, knowing it was useless but unable to stop herself. "You touch them, and I will tear the station apart with my bare hands." "No, you will not." Soren's voice was calm, almost gentle. "Because if you do anything at all to me or my brother, or anyone connected to my family, your people will suffer for it. Not quickly, not cleanly. They will simply have accidents. Contracts canceled. Medicine shipments delayed. The kind of slow, grinding misery that cannot be traced back to anyone but looks an awful lot like bad luck." He stood, smoothing his uniform. "This is how the universe works. Miss Voss, some people are born to rule. Some people are born to serve. And some people are born to be examples of what happens when you forget your place." He bent close, his breath warm on her face. "You will apologize to my brother. Publicly. You will admit that the fight was your fault. You will withdraw from the combat program and request transfer to support track. Something suitably humble. Sanitation, perhaps. And you will spend the rest of your time at this academy reminding everyone that the natural order cannot be challenged." He straightened, adjusting his cuffs. "Do we understand each other?" Kira looked up at him. She saw Dorian in his face, but worse. Dorian was cruel because he was insecure. Soren was cruel because he enjoyed it. "Yes," she said quietly. "I understand you perfectly." Soren smiled. "Excellent. My people will release you outside your quarters. I trust you will make the right decision." They put the bag back over her head. They dragged her back through the corridors. They left her standing in front of her door, wrists raw and pride burning. Bex was waiting inside, her face pale. "What happened? You were gone for 3 hours." "I was about to call security." Kira walked past her without answering. She sat on her bed. She stared at the wall. She thought about her family. Her mother's hands, cracked and calloused from the processing plant. Her father's eyes, still kind even when he could barely breathe. Her siblings, who sent her messages every week asking when she was coming home, when she was going to be a hero like in the stories. She thought about what Soren wanted her to do. Apologize. Bow. Accept her place in the natural order. She thought about it for a very long time, and then she started to plan. The public assembly was held 3 days later. The entire academy gathered in the main hall, cadets and instructors and administrators all watching as Kira Voss walked to the podium. Dorian Kresh sat in the front row, his arm in a sling, his face still bruised, smirking like he had already won. Soren Kresh stood in the back, arms crossed, waiting to see his victory completed. Kira reached the podium. She looked out at the sea of faces. She found Instructor Zahn in the crowd. That cybernetic eye fixed on her with unsettling focus. She found Bex, pale and worried. She found the cadets who had laughed when Dorian fell, the ones who had cheered for her in secret, the ones who had never had anyone fight for them before. She thought about fear. She thought about family. She thought about all the Kiras across the galaxy, all the colony rats and gutter trash who had been told their whole lives that they were born to serve, that the natural order was immutable, that hope was a luxury they could not afford. She leaned into the microphone. I am here today because I was asked to apologize. Dorian's smirk widened. I was asked to admit that the incident in combat training was my fault. I was asked to bow my head and accept my place. I was asked to be an example of what happens when you forget your station. Soren nodded slightly, satisfaction creeping into his expression. Kira paused. She took a breath. But here's the thing about examples. They work both ways. The smirks began to fade. Dorian Kresh pushed me because he thought I would not push back. He thought I would take it the way I had taken everything else. Because that is what people like me are supposed to do. We are supposed to accept our lot. We are supposed to be grateful for scraps. We are supposed to know our place. Her voice was rising now, filling the hall, reaching every corner. Well, I know my place. My place is right here. My place is earned through blood and sweat and sacrifice, not handed down through family names and corporate contracts. My place is where I put it, not where someone else decides it should be. She looked directly at Dorian. You push me, and I put you through the floor. That is cause and effect. That is physics. And if you or anyone else pushes me again, I will respond the same way. Not because I want to fight, but because some of us do not have the luxury of walking away. She turned to face the back of the hall, finding Soren's eyes in crowd. His expression had gone cold, his jaw tight with fury. Kira smiled at him. It was the same smile she had given Dorian on the mat. I know threats were made. I know there are people who think they can hurt my family, my home, everything I love. But I want those people to understand something very clearly. She leaned into the microphone. I grew up in the dark. I learned to fight in the pits of Dust 7, where the only rule was survive. I clawed my way out of nothing, through nothing with nothing. And I did not come all this way to bend my knee to anyone. Her voice dropped, becoming quiet and cold and utterly certain. You want a war? Fine. But understand what you are starting. I am not the colony rat you think I am. I am the thing that colony rats tell stories about. The one who got out. The one who fought back. The one who did not break. She straightened, addressing the entire assembly once more. I am Kira Voss. I earned my place here, and I am not going anywhere. She stepped back from the podium. The silence lasted approximately 4 seconds. Then Instructor Zahn started to clap. It was slow at first, deliberate, but others joined her. Bex, the cadets who had laughed at Dorian's fall, the ones who had never had anyone speak for them before. The sound grew and grew until it was thunder, until it was a wave, until it filled the hall and shook the walls and drowned out everything else. Kira stood at the podium and let it wash over her. Soren Kresh was gone. He had slipped out during her speech, his face a mask of cold rage. He would come for her now. She knew that. He would use every resource, every connection, every dirty trick in the intelligence playbook. But she had just given him a problem. She was famous now, not just on the station, but across the network. The footage of her speech would spread even faster than the footage of the fight. People would know her name. People would be watching. And predators did not like being watched. Dorian Kresh was staring at her from the front row, his face a complicated mess of hatred and something that might have been fear. She met his gaze steadily. The natural order, she thought, is whatever we make it. After the assembly, Instructor Zahn found her in the corridor. That was either very brave or very stupid. Cadet Voss. Probably both, Kira admitted. Zahn studied her for a long moment. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a small chip. This contains information on Soren Kresh, his operations, his methods, his vulnerabilities. She pressed it into Kira's hand. Consider it a graduation gift. Early, Kira looked down at the chip, then back up at Zahn. Why are you helping me? Because I've been watching this academy protect people like the Kresh family for 2 decades, and I am tired of it. Zahn's cybernetic eye gleamed. Burn them down, Cadet Voss. Burn them all down. She walked away without another word. Kira stood alone in the corridor, the chip warm in her palm, the sound of applause still echoing in her memory. She thought about her family, about Dust 7, about all the battles yet to come. Then she smiled. She had come to this academy to survive, to earn credits, to send money home. But survival was not enough anymore. Dorian Kresh had pushed her, and she had put him through the floor. Soren Kresh had threatened her family, and she had declared war in front of the entire station. Now it was time to show them what a colony Rat could really do. She pocketed the chip and walked toward her quarters, already planning her next move. The natural order was about to change, and Kira Voss was just getting started.